Chapter 3 Salem House School. I thought that London was an amazing place when I saw it in the distance and believed all the adventures of my favorite heroes. We eventually arrived at the inn in the Whitechapel district. The guard saw me and called out, "Is there anybody here for a youngster bogged in the name of Murdstone from Blunderstone, Suffolk?" There was no answer. "Try Copperfield, if you please, sir," I said worriedly. The guard said the same words again, substituting Copperfield. Nobody came forward to claim me. I climbed down from the coach. The luggage was taken out. The horses were unhitched, and the wagon was wheeled out of the way, and still nobody had come to claim the dusty young boy from Blunderstone, Suffolk. I stood in a panic, wondering what to do next. Supposing nobody ever fetched me, would they just keep me there? Would my 7 shillings last long? Where would I sleep? What if Mr. Murdstone had made this plan to get rid of me? What would I do? Maybe I should try and walk back home. Although I didn't know the way, I was still planning my future when I saw a man come in and whisper to the clerk. The clerk pushed me over to him as if I were weighed, bought, delivered, and paid for. The young man introduced himself as Mr. Mell and said that he was one of the masters at my new school. Mr. Mell had hollow cheeks, no whiskers, and his hair was rusty and dry. He was dressed in a black suit, which also looked rusty and dry. It was too short in the sleeves and the legs, and he wore a white scarf around his neck. "You are the new boy," he said. "Yes, sir," I said. I suppose I was. I didn't know. I asked Mr. Mell how far we were going. "It's down by Blackheath," he said. I didn't know where Blackheath was, and told him so. He told me that it was about 6 miles away and that we would travel by stagecoach. Before we set out for the school, we stopped to visit a poor old lady who seemed to know Mr. Mell very well. "Can you cook this young gentleman's breakfast for him?" said the master, and the little old woman agreed to do so happily. While I ate, the old woman turned to the master and asked, "Have you got your flute with you?" The master put his hand underneath his coat and brought out his flute in 3 pieces. He screwed it together and began to play. He made the most miserable sounds I've ever heard. I was so sleepy that I couldn't keep my eyes open and fell asleep listening to the hum of the flute. Whilst I was sleeping, Mr. Mell put me inside the coach, where I slept all the way to Salem House School. My first impression of my new home was that it looked very dull. A stout man with a wooden leg opened the gate to let us in. He closed and locked it behind us. Salem House School was a square brick building, and it was very quiet. Mr. Mell told me that Mr. Murdstone, as a punishment for my bad behavior at home, had sent me to school during the holidays. Mr. Creakle, the proprietor, was at the seaside with his wife and his daughter. Mr. Mell took me to a depressing schoolroom. The room had 3 long rows and desks surrounded by pegs for hats and coats. The walls were covered in ink, and there was an unpleasant smell about the place. Pieces of old copybooks were on the floor, and 2 little white mice ran over the dirty floor. Mr. Mell left me alone in this horrible room, and as I looked around I saw a sign that said, "Beware of him, he bites." I looked around frightened to see if I could find the big dog. I was still looking under the desks for the dog when Mr. Mell returned, and he asked what I was doing. "I beg your pardon, sir," I said. "I am looking for the dog." "Dog?" he says. "What dog?" I explained that I was looking for the dog that bit people. "No, Copperfield," said Mr. Mell, "that's not for a dog, that's for a boy." My instructions are to put this sign on your back. I am sorry, but I must do it. He then tied the sign to my back. My days were long and boring, and I was lonely and homesick. Every day I did my lessons with Mr. Mell, who was quiet but kind. Before and after my lessons, I walked about accompanied by the man with the wooden leg. At 1 o'clock I ate lunch with Mr. Mell and then had more lessons until tea time. We finished our lessons at 7 o'clock, and then Mr. Mell took out his flute and blew at it. At night I went to bed alone in the unused rooms and sat on my bed crying. I had lived like this for about a month. When Mr. Mell told me that Mr. Creakle would be returning to the school, the man with the wooden leg cleaned the schoolroom with a mop and bucket in preparation for the owner's return. Later that night I was taken to Mr. Creakle's part of the house. Mr. Creakle's home was comfortable, bright and clean, and I could see a nice little garden outside the window. Mr. Creakle was a stout gentleman with small eyes, a little nose, and a large chin. He was bald with a little gray hair. I stood before him and was turned around so that Mr. Creakle could see the sign on my back. He turned and said, "Now, what's the report on this boy?" "There's nothing against him yet," replied the man with the wooden leg. "There has been no opportunity for him to do something wrong." "Come here, sir," said Mr. Creakle. "I know your stepfather. He's a well-respected and worthy man. I don't want any trouble from you, or I will report you to him." Mr. Creakle pinched my ear and asked if I knew anything about him. "Not yet, sir," I said in pain. I was very frightened and could hardly speak. "I'll tell you what I am," whispered Mr. Creakle, letting go of my ear. "I am a Tartar. I am a determined man. I don't like bad boys. So be good and I won't have to hurt you." He then told Wooden Leg to take me away. I was very pleased to be dismissed, but couldn't help saying, "If you please, sir." Mr. Creakle was surprised at my speaking, but I carried on. "If you please, sir, may I take this sign off my back before the other boys return to school?" Mr. Creakle jumped from his chair and I ran from the room. I didn't stop until I reached my own bedroom, where I jumped into bed and lay shaking in fear, waiting for Mr. Creakle to follow me. When I realized he wasn't going to find me and punish me, I fell asleep. Mr. Sharp was the first person to arrive at school the following morning. He was the first master and held a high position in the school. He had very smooth and wavy hair, which I later learned was a wig, and that Mr. Sharp went out every Saturday afternoon to get it curled. Tommy Traddles was the first boy back at school. He was a friendly boy who made great fun of my sign. In fact, he saved me from embarrassment by introducing me to every boy who came back, saying, "Hey, look at this sign. Isn't it funny? What a good joke." When James Steerforth arrived at school, I was taken to him and showed him the sign on my back. He was a good student and a very good-looking boy. He said it was a shame that I had to wear the sign, and I was grateful to him for being so kind to me. "How many money have you got, Copperfield?" he said as we walked together. I showed him the 7 shillings that I had. "You had better give it to me to take care of," he said. I was happy to do so and quickly opened Peggotty's purse, turning it upside down into his hand. "Do you want to spend anything now?" he asked me. "No, thank you," I replied. "You can, if you like, you know," said Steerforth. I replied that I didn't want to spend any money. "Perhaps you'd like to spend a couple of shillings or so on something to drink for the boys up in our bedroom," said Steerforth. "We are in the same bedroom, you know." I didn't know that, but I agreed to spend some money. "Very good," said Steerforth. "Why not spend another shilling or so on biscuits and another on some fruit?" Well, Copperfield, you really are throwing your money around, he said laughingly. I liked the way in which he teased me. Later that night, when we went upstairs to bed, I found that Steerforth had spent the whole 7 shillings on a feast and laid it out on my bed, saying, "There you are, young Copperfield." I was so shaken and upset that all my money had been spent, and I asked Steerforth to hand around the food. Steerforth sat on my pillow, and I sat on the floor, and the other boys grouped themselves around us on the beds and on the floor. We ate the feast quickly, leaving nothing for the following day. The boys told me about Mr. Creakle. They said that he was the sternest and severest of masters and liked to hit the boys. Steerforth said that Mr. Creakle never punished him. I learned that the man with the wooden leg, whose name was Tongue-Eye, had been in business with Mr. Creakle and had arrived at school with the principal. "Good night, young Copperfield," said Steerforth, as we made ready for bed. "I will take care of you. You're a very kind boy, and I thank you for the feast." "Good night, sir," I replied sleepily. I thought about Steerforth after I had climbed to my bed. He was a person of great power, and he looked very handsome in the moonlight, with his head laying over one arm.